1. The Vengeful Ghosts of the Hike, Ichizoku, no Onru. This is one of Japan's best-known ghost tales, famous on the No and Kabuki stage. Near the end of Japan's greatest civil war, the Hike clan was crushed and scattered. But the ghosts of Japan never accept defeat. It was the year 1185. Minamoto no Yoshitsune stood at the prow as his boat sped across Daimatsu Bay in Setsu Province, modern Hyugo. Yoshitsune was fleeing his elder brother, Minamoto no Yorimoto, who had just seized power from the Hike and declared himself shogun. Yorimoto saw his younger brother as a threat. By escaping the capital, Yoshitsune hoped to slip free of his brother's paranoia and jealousy. There had been ominous signs. Yoshitsune had been forced to leave behind his lover, the famed dancer Shizuka. During her farewell dance, her head covering slipped to the floor. The sea heaved into waves. Yoshitsune considered delaying departure, but his loyal retainer, the warrior monk, Musashibo Benkei, pressed him to set out at once. Any delay would mean death at the hands of Yorimoto's soldiers. At first, despite rough seas, the voyage was uneventful. Then matters grew worse. As the ship left Daimatsu Bay behind and headed toward Mount Yoshino, a sudden, unheralded fog rolled in and swallowed the boat. Furious waves smashed the vessel from all sides, tossing it like a toy. The ship was trapped, unable to advance or retreat as, if clutched by supernatural forces. A glance over the gunwale revealed the cause. Hidden in the waves were the pale bodies of Hike warriors' men Yoshitsune himself had destroyed. Skeletal hands gripped the hull from every side. The only route left to the ship was the road to hell. Suddenly, a ghostly warrior leaped aboard. In an instant, Yoshitsune recognized Taira no Tamamori, the Hike's ferocious general. Eyes blazing red with wrath, Tamamori whirled his great naginata and charged. Yoshitsune drew his sword without fear and readied himself to face death's champion. But the warrior monk Benkei understood that mortal skill could not subdue the dead. No matter how keen his master's blade, it could not slay one already slain. Tamamori's naginata, however, could kill the living. So Benkei knelt, chanting with fervor, praying to the gods. He invoked the deities of the 5 directions: east, west, south, north, and the enigmatic 5th direction. While Yoshitsune and his men slashed at Tamamori and the Hike's vengeful shades, Benkei fought a spiritual battle of faith and devotion, countering their sorcery with prayer. By the power of Benkei's ardent supplication, the storm and fog vanished as swiftly as they had come. The Hike ghosts dissolved. They could not withstand the gods' protection. The battle ended, and Yoshitsune's party continued on in peace. Ghost stories Yurei tales flourished in the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, when people delighted in Hakuma no Garari, Kadankai, gatherings of 100 strange stories. Participants sat in a circle and took turns telling a tale. 100 candles were lit, and then snuffed out one by one, after each story, letting the room sink deeper into shadow. To feed these events, people peered into every dark corner, pried up half-buried stones in deserted shrine yards, and begged grandparents to dredge up half-remembered legends. Some tales were gruesome and uncanny, lovers returning from the grave. Parades of spirits on the road to hell, disembodied hands. Below are 10 of the most widely known Japanese ghost stories. To the blind songstresses, Ghost Goes no Yurei, considered one of the most chilling revenge tales about the bloody vengeance of a blind female musician's spirit. During the Kaya era, 1716 to 1736. A samurai named Hatsumi Kanji from Kitakuni province was on his annual required journey to Edo. He stopped at a roadside inn to rest. In his room, he heard a voice singing more exquisite than any he had ever heard coming from a neighboring chamber. Unbeknownst to him, the singer was a ghost, a blind woman who traveled performing with a shamisen. Assuming such a voice must belong to a beauty, Hatsumi decided to possess her. Finding her room, he hid in the dark to wait. When the ghost returned, Hatsumi sprang from hiding and forced himself upon her, but strangely, she offered no resistance. At dawn, Hatsumi was horrified to discover the woman's face was plain, even unattractive, not the beauty he had imagined. She smiled at him, a pure, happy smile, believing she had finally found love. Nothing could be further from the truth. Hatsumi concocted a plan, taking her along toward Edo. On a lonely mountain path, he pushed the blind woman into a ravine to kill her, then went on his way, confident he had disposed of the problem cleanly. A year later, Hatsumi had all but forgotten. Again traveling to Edo, he stopped for the night at a small mountain temple. That night, the ghost's ghost appeared before him. "You've forgotten last autumn, haven't you? You took my body and cast me aside like trash. I had no eyes, but now I see your heart clearly." She seized his legs and yanked him from bed. He struggled, but he was no match for her fury. She dragged him to the temple graveyard, stopped before one grave, curled her lip in a sneer, then embraced him and thrust him down into the earth. Monks, having heard the commotion, came running. Following the trail to the cemetery, they dug with shovels and soon uncovered Hatsumi's corpse entwined in the skeleton of a woman. Fate had led Hatsumi to the very temple where the ghost's body had been buried after being found in the ravine. Her spirit had waited there for the faithless man, until the day she claimed him. 3. The Beckoning Hand Manakute no Yurei. Late at night, on your way to the toilet, a mysterious hand juts from the wall and beckons. You step into the room but no one is there. Likely you've met the yurei of someone who died in that room. They want something, but have power only to show a pleading hand. This type of tale is common in Japan, especially involving house spirits. Generally, such yurei want nothing more than acknowledgement and a sutra chanted for them at a local shrine. These beckoning ghosts tend to cluster near shrines, or around devout people who can perform memorial rites. Among yurei, they read relatively harmless. A typical Edo period story. A chief priest, traveling to Akiyama, heard footsteps behind him. Sensitive to the supernatural, he knew at once. Ah, a poor lost soul, one who died in the village's great drought. Pitiful to wander still. Upon reaching the village, he prepared a Buddhist sutra, then returned to the spot at night. As expected, a milk-white hand emerged from the darkness. The priest placed the sutra upon the hand, and chanted a memorial prayer. The nameless yurei vanished, and never appeared again. For hungry ghosts Hidarogami, if you're hiking in the mountains and a savage hunger rips through you, dropping you to your knees, you may be under attack by Hidarugami hungry ghosts. These are said to be the spirits of people who starved in the mountains. Dying alone, they received neither graves nor memorial rites. Their spirits soured into malice, forcing others to share their suffering. They appear mostly on mountain paths. Travelers struck by Hidarugami are suddenly ravenous, exhausted. numb in their limbs, a sensation said to equal real starvation. Victims collapse, possessed by the ghosts. Without countermeasures, Hidorugami can kill even the healthiest by starvation. Those who die join their ranks, swelling the host. The remedy is simple if you're prepared. A small morsel of food, especially rice or grains, will repel the attack. The hunger departs as swiftly as it came. Hence even today travelers are warned not to venture deep into the mountains without rice balls or a lunch, and never to eat everything. Always save a few grains for emergencies. Hakumonogorari gatherings and old travel guides brim with Hidorugami anecdotes. In one 1736 tale, a man named Senkichi was found, collapsed, and speechless on a mountain road. Carted back to town, to recover, believed to have been attacked by Hidorugami. Another tells of a merchant crossing Noborio, Pass toward Onahara, who, only hours after lunch, was seized by a deathly hunger and barely staggered to a temple. An 1861 traveler's guide warned of the danger of entering the mountains without rice balls as protection. In Koki, Nagasaki, and Kagoshima, small roadside shrines that passes to honor Hidorugami. Simple rites, there sometimes merely laying a few twigs, are said to guard against them. 5. The Clattering Bridge Gatagatabashi in Osaka Village in Hidamaden, Gifu. A man named Kahneman lived with his family. Before his house hung an old wooden suspension bridge spanning a mountain gorge to the next village. One night, he heard the bridge's distinctive clack-clack, as if someone crossed it, along with whispers. Night crossings were perilous, so he rushed out to warn them, whoever they were, but saw no one. It happened nightly, the bridge clattering, murmurs, even sobbing and lamentation. At a loss, Kahneman consulted a diviner, who told him those sounds were the procession of the dead on their way to Takayama, now Toyama. There, many entrances to hell were said to yawn, and the newly dead had found the bridge a convenient route. Kahneman moved far from the bridge, and arranged memorial rites upon it, pleading for lighter judgments on the damned. He also erected a permanent memorial at the site. From then on, the strange sounds ceased. Yet the bridge is remembered to this day as Gatagatabashi, the clattering bridge. 6. The Talking Skull. This story dates to around 1300 BCE as transmitted. In Nara stood Kenkoji Temple, home to a monk named Diti, from Koma, northern Chosen Peninsula. Known for compassion, Diti once spent his savings to build a public bridge over the Uji River, earning deep respect. Traveling through Nara's mountain valleys with his disciple Manryo, Diti noticed a human skull lying by the road, caked in mud, and clearly kicked about. A little flesh still clung to the bone. Feeling pity, Diti said to Manryo, "See this pitiable skull. Whoever it was, even in death it's kicked along. At least we can lift it away from the path to spare it such shame." Manryo obeyed, placing the skull in a tree off the road and covering it with branches. That New Year's Eve, a man arrived at Kenkoji's gate asking to see Manryo. Polite and proper, he was shown in. Though Manryo had never met him, the man's face felt strangely familiar. "I owe you a great debt," the man said. "You did me a profound kindness. I wish to repay your generosity. I have nothing on me now, but please come to my home so I can repay you properly." Moved by his earnest plea, Manryo agreed. At the man's house, an extravagant feast awaited. "Please, eat what you like. Eat your fill." The host devoured food with gusto, and Manrio, still young, succumbed to earthly delights. Very well, I'll hear the reason later. For now, I'll enjoy the feast. He ate ravenously. Dishes piled high. At last he could eat no more. Suddenly, violence flashed across the host's face. Revered Manrio, my brother, who murdered me, has come. We must flee at once. What? What are you saying? Manrio, stammered the man, explained, voice shaking. Years ago, my brother and I went into business together. I saved 18 cans of gold. He saved nothing, and decided to kill me to seize my gold. My body rotted in the woods until only a skull remained. Passersby merely kicked me aside. Horrible. But then you came and rescued me from filth and humiliation. I didn't know how to repay such a favor, so tonight I invited you here to treat you to this feast. Astonished, Manrio still wanted to avoid the murderer. He sprang up to flee, but too late. The door creaked open. Someone entered. Manrio froze. But it was only the murderer's wife and their son. Seeing a monk standing in her own parlor, she screamed, "Ah, a monk! Why are you in my house?" Manrio recounted every detail he had heard. Turning for the ghost to confirm, he found no one behind him. The wife was as shocked as Manrio. It contradicted everything she had been told. Sternly she glared at the boy. "Your father was vile. Pray for your murdered uncle's spirit, and beg forgiveness for your father's crime." The boy obeyed, banishing his father's image from his heart, and replacing it with reverence for his uncle. 7. The strong man's ghost, Chikaramachi, Yurei. Long ago in the EMP era, 1672-1683, a farmer lived with his very unusual wife in the tiny village of Mikoharabara, nestled in a remote mountain valley in Uneash, modern Ishikawa. She was unusual for many reasons. Scales grew beneath her armpits. Her nipples were so long she could toss them over her shoulders and nurse a child lying on her back. And she possessed prodigious strength, able, people said, to fight off 4 or 5 grown men alone. Even the strongest cannot escape illness. That winter, she fell sick and died. On the 17th day after her death, she returned as a Yurei, and haunted her husband to death. No one knows what he did to earn her curse, but it happened. Even then she was not satisfied. Her ghost terrorized the village. At last a traveling merchant named Sakuzo stopped in. Hearing the story, he wondered if there was a hole in her grave reason. He thought that her restless spirit still plagued the village even after killing her husband. Villagers checked and found a deep burrow leading into her tomb. They filled it and sealed it with a great stone. It helped, but not fully. The woman's malice latched onto Sakuzo. She tormented him as she had her husband. Besieged, Sakuzo made pilgrimage to a nearby shrine, and borrowed a famed sword, kept there, a charm against Yureis said to subdue demons. Carrying it always, he was no longer troubled and returned the sword. On his journey home over steep passes, he felt a strange presence from behind. Before he could react, he was hoisted 10 meters into the air and hurled into the ravine. He struck, bloodied and unconscious, as if dead. Satisfied she had killed him, the farmer's wife vanished forever. 8. The Black Heron. The capital lived a poor samurai, who was summoned to serve a distant lord. He eagerly accepted, abandoning his wife to live with another woman for many years. When his service ended, he returned to the capital and found himself missing his former wife. At midnight, he came to their old home. Autumn moonlight washed the house in a cold glow. The gate stood open. Inside, his wife sat quietly alone. She showed no anger or grievance toward the man who had wronged her. Instead, she welcomed and congratulated him on his return after so long. Overcome, the samurai swore to stay by her side forever, never to part again. Content with her happy face, he embraced her and fell asleep. At dawn, brilliant sunlight filled the house, brighter than last night's moon. He looked down to find that, instead of holding his wife, he clutched a dried corpse skin clinging to bone wrapped in a cascade of long black hair. He burst into the neighbor's house. What happened to the woman next door? She was abandoned by her faithless husband. Grief made her ill, and she died just this past summer. With no one to tend her or arrange a funeral, her body still lies there. 9. The Ghost Woman of Azuwakatsu. Azuwakatsu no Yurei. Long ago in Azuwakatsu, modern Fukushima, a man named Iyo lived with his wife. One night, the ghost of a woman appeared in their home. At first, the dead woman whom neither of them knew appeared in the garden, knocking on the closed door and calling the wife's name. Iyo's wife, a stern nonsense type, shouted back, "Who are you and what do you want?" There was no answer, only the Yurei repeatedly calling her name. Prepared for this, the wife grabbed a special box near their futon, and took out an ofuda, a paper talisman inscribed by a local priest with spells to repel spirits. She hurled it at the ghost, which vanished like smoke. But the ghost would not leave them. The next night she appeared in the kitchen, rising from the hearth flame. Another night she roamed the garden, ringing a bell with a wooden mallet. This continued for 4 days. Knowing she could not subdue the spirit, the wife went to a shrine to pray for divine protection over their home. That night, peace returned. The ghost did not appear. It was the 8th day since the first sighting. Apparently the protection lasted only 1 night. The ghost now manifested directly in their bedroom, hovering above their pillows. Then slowly descending to the foot of the bed, to stroke the wife's feet with a cold, dead hand. That was too much. Iho and his wife moved house at once. The woman's identity remains a mystery. None of the family had seen her before, nor did they learn what she wanted or why she came. 10. The Ghost of Oyuki. The Ghost of Oyuki is Japan's most famous and influential ghost painting. The image that fixed the look of a ghost in the Japanese mind. The pale woman with long black hair in a white kimono existed in legend. But this particular form, especially the lack of feet, took shape under the brush of Maruyama Kiyo. Though famous as the Ghost of Oyuki, the Japanese title is Yureizu. Oyuki no Maburoshi, Portrait of a Yurei, the Phantom of Oyuki. According to notes on an old document box apparently copied by a previous owner named Shimizu, the young painter had a lover named Oyuki, a geisha, at the Tominaga house in Utsu, Gemi Province, modern Shiga. Oyuki died young. The note does not say how or when. Kiyo grieved deeply. One night, in 1750, during the Edo period, Maruyama Kiyo awoke from a fitful sleep to see a young woman floating at the foot of his bed. She was beautiful and deathly pale. Her pallid skin showed beneath a loose, white funerary kimono. In stark contrast were her deep black eyes, staring, and her long, disheveled black hair spilling over her shoulders. She had no feet. The ghost lingered a moment, then vanished. Kiyo leaped up and painted Oyuki exactly as she had appeared. Kiyo was already renowned for uncompromising naturalism. He painted something, people believed he had truly seen it. Because of his reputation, When he exhibited the painting and told the story, the Japanese public accepted that this was the true form of a Yer ray. They have honored this image ever since.